Caledonia Skytower, who is an artist and storyteller with over 25 years of experience as a theater designer and administrator. Since 2008, she has worked as a volunteer presenting literature live in the virtual world of Second Life, logging in over 700 hours to benefit a variety of charities as part of Sunshine Library. She currently works as a narrator, artist, author, and as a consultant and contractor to nonprofits arts organizations. Caledonia Skytower's presentation today is titled, If You Build It, Is It Still Just Stuff? So thank you so much, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. I have a PowerPoint, but it's a three-dimensional PowerPoint, and I don't think it's going to make any of our graphics cards crash. But just in case it makes any of them, I'm just going to say in advance, I'm sorry. But we've tested this, so I'm hopeful. JJ, you might actually want to scoot your stuff a little farther down onto the Italian tile, unless you want to see my stuff kind of get absorbed, which I don't want to, because there's cool stuff and it was really great for you to make that available. I'm excited about seeing what's in the airship. That's right. All right, here we go. If you build it, it's still just stuff. I'm sure that there are unwritten notes, rules to keynote speeches. You're supposed to step confidently to the podium, bristling with dignity, and be presented as an expert before a gathering of interested and informed faces. And we have the interested and informed faces. I'm going to break those rules, certainly, by starting with a disclaimer. I do not greet you today holding a degree in library sciences, information technology, imagine learning, or even education. I come to you with what some might consider that most dubious of academic qualifications. I have a degree in theater. What's more, my focal studies were not even in directing and acting. They were in theater design and technology, which, in my academic time, involved a lot more levers and dials and not nearly as many algorithms as it were today. Yes, incredibly, I still draft and draw with leaded pencils. I would fit right in at Caledonia. So, what do these unlikely credentials offer you at the iSchool? Like an unfinished salad, the flavorful dish of my qualifications is incomplete without some added ingredients. Over 3 decades of project management, working in the nonprofit sector, and generally getting things done in an organized fashion, often amidst the chaos that can be the performing arts. In my core field, if you build it, somebody's got their mic on, and I think we're kind of interfering with each other. I'm not sure who. Oh, it might be Heather. I'm not sure. Okay, here we go. In my core field, it happens, it's okay. In my core field, if you build it and no one comes, you don't have a show. You have nothing. You have bills. Yet here I am over 30 years after graduation, and I serve as part of the lead staff of a successful virtual library program that is entering its 8th year, which has presented well over 2,000 titles live in voice from hundreds of different authors, dozens of genres, and is responsible for over 60% of the traffic on our home region here in Second Life. How the heck did that happen? My role at Shawnee Libraries with our main operation here in Second Life and branches at InWorlds and on the OpenSim metaverse through the Kitely Grid is a unique synthesis of all the skills that I've gained over my professional career. Promotion, event management, program development, graphics, and even scenic design. Combine this with a passionate renewal of a love of literature and language that I credit entirely to my involvement in virtual worlds and to the Shawnee Library program specifically, and I become incredibly qualified to be doing what I do and sharing those experiences with you today. At the heart of it, learning of any kind is a creative endeavor. The best educations not only impart information, but they teach you how to learn, and they instill in you the desire to explore, test, and innovate. In the working world, it's not always about what you know, but often it can be about what you can figure out. The most valuable ideas can come when you look outside the comfort of the familiar and observe the corollaries in other lines of learning and endeavor, much like what JJ was talking about. My goal for this presentation today is that it makes each of you stop for a moment and consider, challenge, and look at what is possible in virtual project-based enrichment in a different way. Even with today's current technology, right now, virtual worlds hold incredible potential that we have not yet perfected. In the recently published American Library Association report on the state of American libraries for 2015, it's a celebration of libraries, all types of libraries, as community anchors with unlimited possibilities to promote education, equity, social and racial justice, place, and community. I quote, "Public libraries are community anchors that address economic, education, and health disparities in our community. In educational programs, print and digital books, databases, meeting spaces, and instruction on how to use new technologies are among the many resources and services provided by libraries. More than two-thirds of Americans agree that libraries are important because they improve the quality of life in a community, promote literacy and reading, and provide many people with a chance to succeed." What are the opportunities for such a community institution in a virtual media where you can create and connect almost anything easily and with comparative economy? First off, what do we think of when we say the word library? We think of an organized collection of information and similar resources made available to a defined community, schools, higher academia, and the general public. We often visualize this as shelves of books, archives of information, and other resources. In olden times, we thought of microfiche. I suspect that I am not the only one here who actually remembers microfiche. When we think of libraries, we tend to, okay, everybody put your hands out. When we think of libraries, we tend to see what libraries have, the stuff, the collections, the collateral. As this year's report from the ALA suggests, let's challenge ourselves to think of libraries differently. Not defined by what they have, but by what they are in our communities. And that is the perspective on which the Shawnee libraries are based. The library is more than the sum of its contents. A library is a community anchor in a variety of socioeconomic ways, of course, and a library is fundamentally about community, about people. It's a clean, safe place for people to gather, both singly and in groups, to engage in resources in pursuit of their individual or shared needs. Researching a term paper on the importance of the works of Chaucer right alongside a class in basic internet literacy for the homeless. Without the people and the needs, the contents of the library are simply so many potential services for dust collection. The resources of any library are most relevant when they are being actively engaged and used. For that, you need people. And in virtual terms, you need traffic. There are many libraries to be found in virtual worlds. Most do a tremendous job in offering traditional connections to resources in ways that are unique to this medium. There are soaringly beautiful constructions rich with textures and rife with internet links. There are themed libraries filled with connections to relevant literature for science fiction, gothic epics, steampunk, and other popular genres. There are communities vibrant with book discussions. There are also many intricately built venues with no one in them, the virtual equivalent of shelf upon shelf of dusty books. In preparing for this presentation, I went into my landmark folder for libraries, and it was surprising how many wonderful ones have been displaced or no longer exist. The ones that still exist all have one thing in common. They are all more than the sum of their prims and scripts and research. My home program, Shawnee Library, is one of them. I would love to take credit for the idea of Shawnee Library, but I have only the maintenance and the development of the idea as my responsibility. The original thought came from, and here she is tonight, Derry McMahon, who founded the program and also possesses a master's degree in library sciences in the real world. Back in 2007, she spent a year traversing the SL grid and looking at libraries. What she found were a lot of interesting communities and a lot of empty builds. She asked herself, do avatars really read books? Why would someone log on to an avatar to read the Iliad on a note card or to click on a link to a book online when they could so easily do so from a browser search with a lot less bandwidth use? After all, a really good read will submerge your imagination in the world of the tale, a vision of the author's world that is unique to you. So how could a new library, Derry considered, serve a virtual community in a new way? There were plenty of locations providing excellent resources and visual prompts to literature, so there was no point in duplicating those efforts just to say, we have a library. Derry's conclusion is crucial to understanding what inspired and what drives Shawnee Library's ongoing mission of bringing stories to life in virtual worlds. Her conclusion was that avatars don't read books. People read books. While there will always be people who use virtual worlds for specific non-social purposes, most are drawn to where activities are. This is an important distinction, not where things are, but where people are. The success of J.J. Drinkwater's work in Caledonia is tied not only to significant skill and professional acumen as a librarian, but to the outstanding success of the greater independent state of Caledonia in cultivating and nurturing a diverse community. You cannot underestimate the need of humans for social interaction when considering virtual worlds. Why would you sit logged into an otherwise empty region reading books online? If you're in a literature-themed environment, you could keep switching from reading to looking about. It's not completely user-intuitive, but it could be an interesting experience. Maybe the story's streaming in audio, but that comes with a whole new set of challenges and limitations, and it doesn't really promote a high rate of return visits. I mean, once you've experienced it, great, move on. Yet what if someone else came along while you were there? Maybe you could discuss the story and the experience with them. Why do people spend their lindens on wall-sized screens for their virtual homes and rent movies when they could just as well watch alone on Netflix or Amazon Prime Instant Video? Because they can share the experience of watching the movie with someone that they would otherwise be unable to share that experience with. Virtual worlds break down barriers to social interaction based on proximity. And we'll revisit this point a little bit later. So, how did Derry's library become different? Derry chose to take a gamble on a library where the collection was not URL links or note cards. She fostered a library based on literature as a dynamic, essential, living ingredient of human existence. Literature is more than print. As live spoken stories in the tradition of the Irish Shawnees, the ancient bards who were an essential part of any court or kingdom. The Shawnee is the poet, the historian, the conscience of the kingdom, and even sometimes of the monarch himself or herself. They recognized the importance of recording songs and stories and repeating them for joy, pride, education, and relevance. The human experience captured and reflected in every tale. Shawnee Library is a library out loud. And our collection is built one story at a time, one book at a time, shared live in voice. So how is that different from reading a book online? That's a totally valid question. After all, at many of our sessions, you'll find avatars sitting in chairs with the presenter standing in front of them. Its appeal sounds a little limited when you describe it that way. Our story settings vary broadly from those with just a few simple props to those that almost completely obliterate the library structure itself, submerging. Sorry, I got distracted. I bought this tree, and I swear every 3 days I get an update to this tree. So let me back up. Right, up until those that almost completely obliterate the library structure itself, submerging the guests in the environs that are evocative of the story being presented. All the options within this range are valid, and they're valid for one important reason. They are simply different degrees of immersion within the same opportunity. The opportunity itself is unique to virtual environments, and that is to participate in an experience that is both intimate and communal. Okay, what do I mean by that? When you listen to a story live, presented well, the technology of the transmission makes the experience very intimate on the individual level. Whether listening on speakers or headphones, it feels like the story is being told just for you. It's very personal. Yet the technology enables you to share this moment with others, having the very same personal experience. We encourage our guests to use typed local chat, just as many of you are doing tonight, to share their thoughts and feelings. Now that would be rude in the real world. That would get you kicked out of the library. But in the virtual world, it serves as a vehicle for building community. Relationships are formed over shared story experiences, not pre-recorded. The presentation is inevitably not perfect, which gives it a wonderfully flawed, immediate, emotional accessibility that is unique to that specific moment, a moment that you share personally and that you share with others. Let me show you what I mean to demonstrate here. Hang on to your hats. There was an old man who had many sons, and he knew in his heart of hearts that his sons loved one another. Yet, day-to-day dealings, they never showed this. They could not seem to get along. The old man was distressed and tried many different ways to entreat his sons to resolve their disagreements respectfully and to reflect the love that he knew was in their hearts with their deeds and actions. He exhorted them to live together in harmony. Stories, entreaties, nothing seemed to work. His sons were always falling out with one another, in front of each other, in front of the entire village. Everyone in the village knew about the brothers squabbling. When to stop for meals, too much mud in the building the wall, too much clay building the wall, too little clay, you owe me this, I owe you that, my soup is too hot, that fruit you gave me was rotten. There was no subject, no aspect of their lives that the sons were not ready to openly and publicly argue about. The reports of the sons' disharmony spread far beyond the village. People in neighboring towns cringed when they saw the brothers approach, knowing the litany of complaints and disharmony that would accompany them. As rumors of their behavior spread, their father's despair became great indeed. If they could just find a way to get along. Finally, the old man realized his days were approaching their end, and he knew that he could not move forward into the world of spirits until he found a way to bring his sons to embrace one another in unity. So the old man declared that they would have one final great feast together. He had delicious foods collected and prepared in great abundance. The fire circle was made comfortable for the gathering with richly colored cushions, and the trees above and around were hung with lovely lanterns that looked like bright stars come to earth. All the sons came as they obeyed, with their families in tow. Even surroundings and the amazing feast, the sons could not keep from being disagreeable. The old man, their father, knew that this was his one final chance to teach this vital lesson to his sons. He called them to him, and as they all settled into their seats around the fire, he produced a bundle of sticks. He turned to his oldest son, saying, "First one, take this bundle in its entire and break it across." The son, a tall and strong man, took the bundle and tried to break it with all his might, but he could not. The bundle resisted his efforts to break it. Then the old man bade each of them in turn to take the bundle and try to break it with their hands. Each put forth all his strength, but the bundle resisted the efforts of every one. Then, cutting the cord which bound the sticks together, he told his sons to each take a single stick, as he himself took one. The old man held his stick high above his head, and he waited until all was silent. And then he waited a moment before saying, "Observe, my sons." And he, old though he was, snapped the stick in two easily. The sound of that snap reverberated around the fire circle in the quiet night air, and then he entreated each one of them to break the separated sticks. This was done, of course, with the greatest of ease. You see, my sons, this is what I've been trying to teach you these many years, and what I want you to fully embrace as my final lesson to you. The power of unity, my beloved sons. Do not let disagreements and petty misunderstandings come between you and make you weak, easily snapped by the slightest effort. For divided, you will fall prey to your enemies. Bound together by brotherly love, you may divide every mortal ill. For in unity, we are given strength. And that was A Bundle of Sticks, which is adapted from an original fable by Aesop. Of course, there was cheese, and wine, and chocolate. Thank you. At Shawnee Libraries, we are dedicated to exploring language arts both as enjoyment and as a learning experience using virtual worlds as tools. That's another fancy way of saying we bring stories to life in virtual worlds. I've spoken of the basics of our program, good stories, well read, to an interested audience, and now I'd like to share with you the other end of the spectrum of our explorations, including some interesting observations that we've made and some corollaries that we've drawn from it. In January and February of this year, we piloted a program called Explore. The pilot was done with a real-world nonprofit partner, the Tacoma Little Theater in Tacoma, Washington, a community-based theater that was founded in 1918 and which is among the oldest such companies in the western United States. Shawnee Libraries produced an augmented learning experience in support of the theater's production of The Great Gatsby, adapted for the stage by Simon Levy from F. Scott Fitzgerald's great American novel. We produced a three-dimensional study guide on a dedicated region on the Kitely grid in the open metaverse. The custom build was inspired directly by the imagery of Fitzgerald's novel, The Valley of Ashes, East Egg, the Buchanan Mansion, West Egg, Gatsby's glorious mansion, and Nick Carraway's humble rental cottage. The build also included over 4 dozen relevant links to the art, music, economic, political, and social trends of the early 1920s, including sections specific to early jazz, Art Deco, flappers, and Prohibition. Additionally, links to the entire canon of Fitzgerald's work were accessible in a gallery dedicated to the author, as well as to biographical links to multiple sources on his life. As if that weren't enough, the work of the theater company itself was also featured. Now, this is not the first time someone in a virtual world has created a themed sim around a work of literature. OS blogger Thurza Ember summed up Explore the Great Gatsby this way. Tacoma Little Theater has teamed with Shawnee Library to create a learning experience which is perfect for people of any age. This is certainly not the first literary sim in the metaverse, not even in OpenSim. Both OS Grid and Craft Grid have had some lovely didactic builds. But while it may not be an original idea, if there is such a thing, it is an exquisitely executed one. Shawnee Library has put together the fabric of the story, the bricks and mortar, if you like, in an original and beautiful way. Now, what made this project different were several things. The project came with its own entry portal, welcome center, and orientation area for those who were new to virtual worlds, and how-to information that was available on tabs on the project website. Part of our partner agreement with Tacoma Little Theater was that Shawnee Library would do the research and create the printed study guide that the theater would distribute to teachers whose classes were attending special weekday matinee performances of the play. I don't think so. Oh, you're hearing me now? Hello? Yes, 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 there I am. Okay. Anybody remember where we parked? Sorry, let me back up. Let's start with, there was information on key plot elements available on the Explore website. Anybody hear that? Guide for teachers. Oh, that's where you were. Thank you. So part of our partner agreement was with the Shawnee Library would do the research and create the printed study guide for the teachers whose classes were going to attend special weekly matinee performances of the play. The virtual build contained all that research that went into the study guide, plus a huge wealth of additional resources. Information on characters and key plot elements were available on the Explorer website. The project included 10 hours of live voice presentations from the novel. The book read in its entirety twice. The project was exposed to over 1,500 theater patrons and guests through TLT performances. Pre-show and at intermission, there was a big screen in the theater lobby and a keyboard station where they could sit down and take control of the company avatar and explore. Over 100 hypergrid visitors internationally experienced the project, including visitors from Italy, Switzerland, Germany, France, the Netherlands, and all over the UK. A parent contacted me after her daughter had been at the theater performance, and she said, "My daughter came home from the theater and she was raving about this." As in our discussion about not replicating what's already been done well by others when Shawnee Library was founded, Shawnee's Explore program does not use gamification, that approach to virtual learning, an approach in which there are tangible goals to be achieved, and a tailored matrix in which the learner navigates. Explore is a project-based learning experience where the learner has the opportunity to self-select from within a broad menu of possibilities, attending, listening, participating in live readings or discussions, exploring the environment, clicking on objects linked to online resources related to the featured work or project. We have several potential partners interested in this approach. One of the elements that will be included in future projects will be to make available virtual classroom visits. The teacher can project the world on a large screen in their classroom and explore the world through a teacher-controlled avatar. The class can ask questions of and hear live readings from the source material from a member of the Shawnee staff who meets them and guides them on their visit. So this will be part of the package that's included with the printed study guide and curricular materials and the visit to the live performance of the theater or a museum exhibition. We had several metaverse tour groups with folks from all over the world visit Explore the Great Gatsby, and while we did present more traditional stand and deliver readings from the novel, kind of like this speech, for these large groups, we did something different. We gave them a brief orientation of the layout of the sim, and then we read to them from the novel on stream for 20 or 30 minutes and allowed them to explore the environment freely while listening. One of the interesting things that we observed from these sessions was that people did not spread out individually during these sessions. They tended to explore in small or large groups, clicking on links together and commenting on both the literature and the resources together. A self-selected, communal learning experience that's valid and appealing to all ages. Returning to the ALA report that I cited earlier, let me quote. Traditional library programs from story times to author talks have always been popular with the patrons. New forms of programming today, from maker spaces to drop-in craft activities, reflect our changing world. In 2012, there were 92.6 million attendees at 4 million programs offered by public libraries. This represents a 10-year increase of 54.4% in program attendance. Libraries all over the United States are implementing new ways to reach diverse and widely spread populations, to get them into the library, not simply to find a book, but repeatedly for a wide variety of programming. The virtual world gives us another tool to accomplish that, and when we include the human element, the ability to build relationships and share information and experiences with others, we hold a powerful opportunity in our hands. Let's revisit the idea of removing proximity barriers. Who could benefit from this, and how? I mean, after all, while a lot of work went into preparing today's conference, no one had to clean the bathrooms or make coffee or run the vacuum to make it happen. No one had to find parking, hire a babysitter, make a restaurant reservation, though some people here might well have run laundry today or even ordered a pizza. So this isn't exactly supporting the fundamentals of a community anchor. You might say this is not really creating jobs or boosting the economy. Yes! You've been paying attention if you thought that. So let's ask ourselves, who gets left out of such immediate economy building? Who gets left out who might benefit from other qualities of a community anchor, creating more democratic, just, and equitable society? Some people have already jumped into this. People with health issues that limit their mobility, either in part or entire, caregivers of homebound or physically confined, people who live in regions where there are miles and miles and miles between miles and miles of people, and easy access to public service can present a challenge. And those are the ones that all come immediately to mind. For those of us who've been in virtual worlds for a while, we know people who are in these circumstances. I bet you can think of others. These are people who also share the desire for social contact, denied either by distance or circumstance. Virtual worlds provide the possibility for both information resources and human interaction. Yes. The one mistake that we make time and time again in virtual worlds is adopting an if-you-build-it mentality. Appealing venues of all types come and go because their creators don't plan beyond the placement of the last trim or script. They either walk away from what they've created, or they let it lapse and fade because there's no one there and nothing is happening. If you build it, it is still just stuff. Looking to the future, yes, embrace new technologies that increase immersion, like Oculus Rift. Innovate building techniques, scripting, challenge yourself in new ways to engage the audience you seek, but don't forget to think beyond the stuff, to plan for the activities that will engage and draw people to your creation and get them talking about it to their friends and anyone else they meet. If you're trying to build something that will be sustainable and have meaningful impact over a long term, in virtual terms, that's more than 3 months, focus on how your activities can create and promote community building. I presented to you the whole wide expanse of what Shawnee libraries do to produce and promote language arts programming. I've spoken and I've shown you everything from the simple to the complex. The foundation of meaningful engagement in a virtual experience, educational or cultural, always starts and ends with me and you. Two people interacting. Ultimately, the greatest opportunity of virtual worlds is not just to better serve communities and foster connections, but to grow and nurture them where they could be and would not exist otherwise. You can click on the red arrow in front of me for a note card with links and landmarks to some of the things that I referenced in my presentation, if you're interested. Thank you for your kind attention this hour, and my thanks to Marie for inviting me and to JJ for agreeing to share the stage with me. Thank you.